and welcome to the Stay and Screamcast. My name's Hunter.
Oh, you introduced me last time, so I kind of thought, that's all right. We're leaving this in. I'm Duff. I forgot. I didn't say my name. I thought you knew by my voice.
Nice to see you, Duff. Nice to be back. And before we get started, I want to go ahead and thank Daniel and Alex for buying us a beer this night. So,
thank you,
cheers,
Daniel and
Duff.
Alex. Cheers.
So, what we decided to talk about this week is, we're going to be recording this. It's going to be going up early next week. We've had opening weekend of HHN, and with that comes our opening weekend reviews, impressions, I guess, really early, ranking list that we'll have to revisit at the end of season. But what we wanted to talk about, because we both agreed these topics are probably not going to get a lot of conversation on those episodes, is the 3 returning houses this year, being the Revenge of the Tooth Fairy, Bride of Frankenstein Lives, and Beetlejuice. It's with so much new stuff this year between the scare zones, we've got to talk about the food, we're going to have to watch the shows tonight to talk about those, and, 7 other new houses. We're anticipating not really having much of time to cover those, minus our general feelings on them. Mm-hmm. So I thought we'd just hit them real quick. We've got about 20-ish minutes until we are good to go into Stay and Scream and check out our first house, and we'll report back more on that next week as we figure out more of what's going on this year, because Stay and Scream is crazier than ever. And without further ado, let's go ahead and hit the Bartman and go ahead and dive into HHN Light, The Return. So let's go ahead and just start off with, it feels weird to say this, let's start off on the most, I don't want to say negative. Let's go ahead and just start off on the note of Beetlejuice.
Oh.
Because...
You mean the 10th best house of this year?
And I feel like a lot of people are inclined to agree with you, which it's really hard to feel that way on, I feel like, a lot of years. Like on any other year, I feel like this house would be in the top 5 for a lot of people, right? But you're going up against some really strong competition, including those houses that we saw during HHN Light last year. It does have the misfortune of being it's the least scary house. Of course, it's the big IP house this year, along with Haunting of Hill House. And with that comes different expectation. And I think that's going to work for it for some people and work against it for others.
Mm-hmm. So, my thing is, I got to do it last year, of course. I got to do it a few times during its 2-day run. And I did enjoy it. I think I'm realizing a lot of that was due to how much excitement was behind it. You had the adrenaline of, well, 1, there was no actual event. 2, this house was only actually open for 2 days.
Yeah.
So there's just a huge hype. It had almost an HHN atmosphere around it the 2 days it was open, too.
Yeah.
So it kind of brought you something more than the house itself. And I never said it was an amazing house then, but it was
same here.
I really appreciated everything it brought me. Now going through it with a full year, 9 other houses, it just doesn't hold up for me. It was also, spoiler alert for the rest of the episode, the least unchanged of the 3 lighthouses.
Yeah.
And there's a few scenes like Deo where we're the whole time, oh, we're going to get something good. We're going to get something good. We got nothing. Same thing.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing for this house is just, unfortunately, we went in with the expectation last year, oh my God, it's extremely cool to be able to check this out on a limited time schedule like this. It felt like an event. And honestly, we weren't for certain if the house was coming back. So it felt like a very, very special thing. Thankfully, that house is back. And there's so many Beetlejuice fans, obviously. And a big thing with this, though, is we always said, you know what? It's really great for HHN Light. I can't wait to see it underneath full operation next year. And unfortunately, full operation is the exact same house we saw last year.
Yeah. And one of the things about HHN Light versus an actual event is HHN Light took place during the day. So you always had that transition of going from really light to dark. And it seemed in most cases they actually kind of turned the lights up a bit to kind of match that.
Yeah.
But when you go into Beetlejuice, it's a very bright house anyways, So it doesn't really get that additional atmosphere like I'm getting in Tooth Fairy and Bride of where like, oh, it's night. Oh, it's dark. This is great.
Yeah.
It's just this bright, vibrant house. And that's, some people's thing.
I think that's what it needs to be in a way. And I am curious because honestly, I feel like if even I was not fortunate enough to see the house last year, this would still be pretty firmly my number 10 right now.
Yeah.
And that's just because it's not giving me what I'm looking for in the haunted houses. However, I've got to understand if I could put something like Ghostbusters in my top 5 last year, Beetlejuice is going to operate underneath the same parameters for people where that IP is their big thing for them this year. And I think that's very important to qualify that.
I mean, how are we looking at this? My personal rating or it's important to the event? 'Cause that's two different conversations.
So I'm looking at this, we're going to give our personal thoughts, obviously. And we already have with our general ranking and everything like that. But I think its importance to the event is not only something that is important for the event to have, but it's the 30th year of HHN, tying it in to the character of Beetlejuice, which has been around since the very first Fright Night. That's a really cool element, I think.
Yeah, I think that's most people are going to miss that. And is that intentional? Do we know? I don't know.
I'm going to give him credit for it.
And a happy accident, at least.
I've had a few of those since last night. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. There's a lot of Beetlejuice fans. It's going to have not the same impact as Stranger Things, but a similar kind of deal where it's going to bring in fans of the franchise to an event that they maybe wouldn't go to otherwise.
Yeah.
So it is important in that sense. It is the big IP. Hill House, obviously, is going to be a big factor, but Beetlejuice is bigger at the end of the day. It's going to draw more people. It has a more hardcore fan base.
Yeah.
So, yeah, important to the event. Doesn't mean it's good.
I would say it's a good house that isn't supplying what we're looking for.
Correct. Yes.
Because I think as far as the Beetlejuice house is concerned, we said this as much last year, I think it's about as good of an adaptation as you could possibly ask for a haunted house.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I and many other people can compare it to Ghostbusters. And for me, it's on a very, very similar level as well. Executed to a very similar level. Depending on the day, I'll give one or the other the edge. And to show you, it's going up against strong competition. Ghostbusters finished 6th for me, I believe, in 2019. And Beetlejuice is firmly at 10. So, it just shows it's also got really strong competition this year.
I actually had no idea that Ghostbusters was that high on your 29.
It might have been 7, but it wasn't lower than that.
Yeah. And even me being a Ghostbusters fan, I think it was number 5 for me overall. And I think that's a huge thing to go into that because I think objectively, I think Beetlejuice is a B+ house. You feel about the same on that?
I'd probably say B-, to be honest.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I feel every other house at the event this year is an A- on forward, to be perfectly honest.
I might put one we're going to talk about later at a B+.
Okay. And let's do that. So let's go ahead and talk about the one that I thought was the most improved since last year. And for me, that was Revenge of the Tooth Fairy.
Now, I'm 100% with you. Yes.
Yeah. Now, this one, I said on our last day in Scream, or maybe Catacombs, one of the two, I basically said something along the lines of Tooth Fairy is going to have the advantage of this year of being not only one of those soundstage houses, but it's not basically shouldering the weight along with Bride of supporting a whole event. It's going to be a nice side house that plays along with everything else. And I think when you look at these two, you have the best of both elements because Tooth Fairy feels like a tent house that's in a soundstage, and I would actually say Puppet Theater in a lot of ways is kind of its sister house, and it's a tent house, it's a soundstage house in a tent, if you'll flip it. So those two, I think, pair together pretty wonderfully. But the thing I think about Tooth Fairy, first of all, James Westthorn's voice is completely changed.
Yeah, and worse?
It's Yeah, I hate to say it, but the James Westhorn is a lot worse this
He
year.
had a very iconic voice last year.
Yeah. It sounds like an adult being a child instead of an actual child this year.
Yes, correct.
However, that doesn't change the maze. The maze, there are a couple new scares in there. The sheet scare room in particular, like the washroom,
Yep.
much more effective this go around. Some of the fairies have actually changed up a little bit.
Completely new design.
We've got a brand new design, and this is a house where we constantly said, oh, without Plexi, the house will be improved a lot. And, we did have the vinyl conversation you're going to talk about on your episode. I want to talk about it on mine. I tweeted out, I was like, the vinyl is such a non-issue at this point. It was not really even noticeable for 90% of the things we went through. But this house is vastly improved by the removal of Plexi in particular, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it still has its spots where you wish there was no barrier, of course.
Yeah.
Because, again, this house is going for claustrophobic, in-your-face scares, and there are times where that's still limited. But it has opened up more.
Finally using the drill scare.
Yeah, finally. I don't know if that's the intended one. It seems like it probably isn't, to be honest.
I'm happy with it, though.
But they stuck a scare actor there.
Yeah.
And was it chewing on a baby? What was it chewing on?
I'm going to have to revisit it.
It looked like it was chewing on like a fetus-sized baby. I feel like that doesn't make too much sense. But
is that illegal in Texas?
No, nothing's illegal in Texas.
Oh.
We'll talk about that house on our own
We'll talk about it in another one,
yeah.
But yeah, this house there's really nothing else to say besides, like, I'm very interested to see where Tooth Fairy ends up on people's lists, because I think I'm going to have to kind of do my best to forget how many times I went through it last year and just experiencing this house all season round underneath HHN, see where it ends up. Because, yeah, it's not the sparkliest house this year, but if I'm putting it in context of I never saw this last year versus against the rest of the lineup, I'd say this is an A- house for sure.
I still... no, it's still in the B's for me. B plus range. I think, honestly, just because of the still limitations that face it, I think it doesn't give off that claustrophobic feel. Like you were saying earlier, it's in a soundstage. It feels like a tight...
And we're doing opening
house.
night reviews right now, too.
Yeah. I don't know. It's tough to say it's just because of the limitations, but I feel like it's mainly because of limitations that I'm still keeping it a bit lower.
Yeah. All right, well, I guess let's go ahead and move into the house right next door, the final one that we saw a ton of. And if we were disappointed in Beetlejuice not changing, this one, I would actually say we're pretty solid in it not changing, because it was already pretty damn close to being a perfect house, and that's The Bride of Frankenstein Lives.
Yeah, I mean, it far and away during HHN Light was the best house. It wasn't even close.
Yeah.
Craziest thing about this year is it doesn't even crack my top 3 at the moment.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure it would be top 3.
I think it stays pretty firm in the top 5, though.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Sure. This is it's how you use the Universal monsters. It's the perfect way to do it. It's a very original take on this story that's so good that, like, Hollywood was like, oh my God, we're gonna break our, like, how do I want to put it, like, book report style of an IP.
Yeah.
They're like, oh no, this sounds great, I'm taking this too. It's just that good of a story. It's so unique. It feels like they did kind of boost up how many Dracula's brides there are.
Yeah.
Which is nice. So a few more scare actors in there to kind of fill it out a bit more. But other than that, there's not really many changes, and perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, this was one, if Beetlejuice needed a couple things to be changed to get leveled up, then this one honestly just need to maintain the same track record. And we got a couple of different changes, and honestly everything they got added has me in a good state with that one.
Yeah, I will say a lot of people were kind of thinking, I think there was even like a kind of like real rumor going around that this was going to be like plus. That wasn't the case.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. But again, didn't need it. It still holds really strong. I don't know what more to say about this house. We've talked about it so much over the past year.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. And so as far as the conversation of these 3 houses returning, in particular Revenge of the Tooth Fairy and Bride of Frankenstein Lives, it sounds like we're in agreement, though. They do add something to the overall lineup of HHN 30, and we're incredibly grateful to have checked them out last year. But man, I can only imagine how different lists would be if you didn't have these experiences last year,
I want to be honest, I don't know that would be much different. I could see maybe Bride taking a little jump just because of there's a few shock factor scenes, you know? You
Yeah.
see in the facade, you're like, oh, shit. And the finale, oh, shit. Which did have a bit of a change. That was nice.
Yeah.
But I think Tooth and Beetlejuice are kind of probably where they'd end up, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, and this is one where we're really not going to be able to give you full thoughts until we get to the end of season and see where things rank. But it sounds like we have a pretty good idea of how we're feeling about the returning houses, and now we've got to figure out where we're feeling about these new houses to try to make some sort of order before we record these ranking and hype episodes. Not even hype anymore, just general impressions, I guess. But yeah.
You know what? Our episode's going a little short, and we were kind of in a rush, and we still made it go short somehow. So I got a question for you. Favorite drink at HHN 30 so far?
I actually really like the Poison Tea Party. It's pretty solid. But the more I thought about it, the Poison Tea Party is very refreshing, right?
Yeah.
But we were also drinking in a temperature-controlled environment. When I'm out here sweating, I actually think the Ghoul Juice might win for me.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
I mean, look.
So, here's the thing. Ghoul Juice is simply just a cocktail that you get every year at HHN. The same specialty cocktail, pre-mixed, it's sweet as shit, you know? Same thing. Poison Tea Party is like a legit cocktail that is delicious and refreshing at the same time without being like overly sweet.
I just want to do a shit ton of sugar. I want it to mainline into my veins, and
I mean, you could just do like a Jaeger bomb if you really need something like that.
Yeah. I guess we'll be doing Jaeger bombs in just a few minutes.
No, I'm okay.
When we release out into the streets of Halloween Horror Nights 30. It's weird because normally we have the Simpsons music playing because last year it was, they didn't change the music. This year, I guess one little thing, the music makes my little gent metalcore heart very happy. It's very Doom 2016 soundtrack inspired, and I'm all about that.
I will say it is disappointing sitting here having a Dufftoberfest and not hearing Spider Pig.
Yes.
It just
bit.
hurts a little bit.
It breaks things up a little bit. But hey, we're going to go ahead and get out of here, and we're going to go sit some houses. Hopefully you all are here soon enjoying Halloween Horror Nights 30 with us. And hey, thanks again. I do want to go ahead and thank the people that offered to buy us a drink this season. That was super awesome. And if you'd like to contribute, once again, the Venmo is just at said something. It's like said something, just without the G. You're not obligated, but it sure is nice to share a drink with friends. So, hey, if you want to keep up with me, the best place to do that is on Twitter. You can find me at DizVincentPrice. That's D-I-S, Vincent Price, and Duff.
Yeah, on Twitter and Instagram at HHN365, and actually on YouTube now.
Yeah.
HHN365.
Duff's got a lot of cool footage coming out for you very soon. It's going to be incredible to edit. I already know. Yeah, there's so much footage. But yes, and of course, just remember, Stay and Screamcast alternates feeds. So you're listening on HHN 365, and next time it'll be on the Catacombs of Halloween Horror Nights. But for now, for all of us here at Stay and Scream, thank you for listening, and thank you for screaming with us.
And Jack's gonna eat your ass?
Jack's gonna eat your ass.